we go. I'm going for greatness.
Welcome to the House of Greatness. Joseph Rojas,
Ike here.
Santiago Campos.
Santiago, our special guest. Been waiting for this one for a while.
There you go. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Welcome to the House of Greatness, Santi. It's been a pleasure.
Yes,
We're
sir.
looking forward to this day, to meeting you.
Likewise.
We've interacted for quite some time, but this is our first time officially meeting. And
Yeah, good vibes. Good vibes since I walked in, so I'm happy with it.
I'm excited to get to know a little bit more about you, get to know your story, how you developed yourself into the person that you are today, and the ideas and the mindset that led you here. So very excited to get to know. If you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you.
Cool, man. Yeah, I appreciate having me on, man. Man, where to start with the story, right? Well, I'm from Texas boy, born and raised. You know, my degree is actually in nuclear medicine. So, you know, I'm in the supplement space, right? And, you know, kind of growing up, you know, my family, nobody had ever gone to school before. And so, you know, Latino Mexican family, it's like, you know, you don't know what to do. You either work or, you know, go to school, get a job and be productive somehow, right? So, and I didn't really have a model. And so I said, well, then I need to go to school. I need to learn, right?
Yeah.
So put myself through college, and that was pretty good experience. I'd say, you know, I'm not using my degree per se, but there's one thing about college that did benefit is I learned how to learn. And once you learn how to learn, as you progress in life, nothing can really stop you if you're willing to learn and figure it out, right? So, I got my degree in nuclear medicine, and then I just...
Nuclear medicine.
Nuclear medicine, man. So
What is nuclear medicine?
nuclear
For everybody
medicine
wondering.
Nuclear medicine is cool, man. It's we deal with radiation, basically, right? And so everybody's familiar with X-ray. And so X-ray, the radiation comes at your body. There's something underneath that picks up that image, right? Nuclear medicine is a little different because there are some therapeutic for cancers and stuff. But essentially, we are putting the radiopharmaceutical or the radioactivity inside your body via IV, via aerosol, ingestion, whatever it is. And that radioactive material is tagged with the pharmaceutical. And that pharmaceutical and the radiation will actually go to a specific organ, and it'll light it up for function.
Oh,
So we
wow.
test.
Gotcha.
Biggest thing for nuclear medicine is heart. It's a lot of heart tests. It's called a myocardial perfusion
Got it.
test.
What
So-
led you to go down that path?
Well, I've always been a science guy, so I love science. I took an entomology course when I was in college, like study of bugs. Like I was a biology major, and then I started getting a little bit older, started realizing that like my dream was always to go take the MCAT, be a doctor, but then I realized that it's just a bunch of studying, no application to just take the big MCAT test, and then you go to school and you go study more, and there was no application. And so at the time, just friends, but that's how I met my wife in college. And she had just got admitted into the nuclear medicine program at UIW there in San Antonio, my college. And I said, hey, what's that program? She said, oh, you know, it's science-based, this and that. I was like, man, I love it. It's a program. You get to actually work in the hospital and work with patients before you graduate. And she's like, yeah. I was like, I think I want to do that. So I applied for the program. Got accepted, graduated top 5% for the program. And but what I liked about it was I was still able to use like all the science, you know, nerdy stuff that I like, but I was able to help people and actually work in the hospital before I graduated and really kind of get some application with the knowledge, right? And so yeah, that's how I got into school. And then after that, wandered into the supplement space and met this guy some years later. And
Now, were you working out through college? Were you a workout guy in your college days?
yeah, man. So I actually started working out like in middle school. I've been lifting a long time. So the rule at least in Texas middle schools was you're not allowed to lift weights in any type of sport or recreation until you hit 7th grade in middle school. And so there was a 6th grade weightlifting football program in the summer that you could do if you were going to play the sport in 7th grade. And so first chance I got, even though I was still a 6th grader transitioning to the 7th, I went into that weight program in the summer and started hitting the iron since day one there, man. So yeah, been lifting for a long time. Body's come up, come down as life, it brings you challenges. And I always say the body's a reflection of typically where we're at mentally. You know, the body says a lot about somebody when you know, somebody walks up and presents themselves to you, how they care for their body, it probably says a lot more than just the physicalities, right? And so body's important, and it teaches discipline. It teaches delayed gratification, right? You can't get it immediately. Teaches work ethic. And so, but yeah, I've been hitting the weights trying to get lean and mean like you for a while now, man.
You're all inspired to have that Ike body.
Nah, you guys, trust me, for everybody watching, don't go backwards in life. Rule number 1, never go backwards.
There you go.
Nah, man, I'm trying to think the first time maybe we interacted, and I don't remember that specifically, but I do remember you were working at a supplement store chain.
Yep.
Down in Texas called Rocks Subs and Vitamins. Pretty sure this was Pro Subs time.
Yep, for sure.
So probably in that 2013, 14, 15 realm.
Yep.
I do remember, you know, Rocks was held as like, you know, one of the premier top retail chains in America, right? But, you know, the one thing I've learned about Texas, Texans love Texans, obviously. There's a brotherhood of people in Texas, right?
Yeah.
And Pro Subs, you know, we were actually, even though the majority of us lived here in Florida, the company was actually based out of Dallas. So I was actually in Texas quite a bit, and I had been to Texas prior to that. But, you know, my Florida look is a little bit different than the Texan look. So I remember over the years, I used to travel there and, you know, get made fun of by everybody, you know, based on the look. But, you know, I remember I kept hearing this word Santi. You got to talk to Santi. I'm like, who the heck is Santi, bro? Where do I find him? You know?
Yeah.
I don't even think Instagram was even around back then, to be honest with you, bro.
No, it wasn't.
But I remember there was an instance where I think we were kind of traveling, you know, and I was kind of trying to track you down in some of the stores. And I remember being at a store once, and they said you were coming, you know, and I could have swore I was there for like 3 hours waiting,
urban
man,
legend.
you know, waiting for 3 hours for the infamous Santi to come, man. But we kind of just hung out there, and there you were. You came in, and, you know, we kind of did our sales pitch. But I don't know. There was just something about that first meeting, man, when I just feel like me and you kind of just hit it off without even, like, technically knowing each other, right?
For sure.
And I don't know what it was, but ever since then, I've got nothing but pleasurable experiences. You've always supported me and my brands throughout time. And I think we've always, you know, wanted to help each other, even outside of just business stuff. You know, we've run similar paths to where we are currently today.
Yeah.
And you could speak to a little bit about that. But I don't know, man. I've always kind of looked up to you, man. I know, ironically speaking, but I think, you know, you've built over that Rocks. I mean, I still say that is one of the most successful retail chains in the history of supplements, right? Even today, in a modern day sports nutrition world where e-commerce is really strong, direct to consumer, Amazon, online business is very strong, but the Rocks group has always kind of sheltered itself in that, you know, South Texas kind of area. They've always run a top-notch program, which I'm sure you had a lot to do with building the structure and how the business was ran. It was just different, man. And you walk into those stores, man, pump some product, right?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how many stores there are now, but I think, you know, there's probably less than 5, probably from what I remember, maybe when it first started. But no, it's been a great journey, man. Glad to have you here.
Yeah.
Glad to see, you know, happy to see what happens to you in the next chapter in your life.
I'm excited for the next chapter too, man. It's going to be exciting. And to your point, I think probably what kind of always kept us in alignment was, you know, I'm a believer on it, and I know you are as well, is, you know, this industry's big, it ain't that big, 1. 2, you know, life's built on relationships. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there that they're not necessarily after the relationship, they're after the dollar, right? And once you get the dollar, what's left, right? But what's even more beneficial or more beautiful is you go for the relationship, and then guess what? The relationship continues, and so does the monetary value. Right. And so, you know, I say, you know, everything is built on relationships, and if you can't build relationships, you won't last. Right. And I think that's something, a testament that has led to my success and also yours, right? Because we were talking about this earlier off camera that, you know, if you hadn't built the relationships with the various amount of different international contacts and vendors and suppliers, on and so forth, it'd be a lot harder for you to move the way
100%.
you know, the way you move. And by the same token, myself as well. So, you know, we've always had a good vibe, and 100% always supported every time there's a new brand, new logo. Hey, Santi, what's up, man? All right, what you got? Let's see what's good. But you always took care of us, man. You always took care of me, and, you know, you knew what needed to be done to make the deal beneficial on both sides. And I had the respect on the other side of the fence where it's like, hey, it's a business. I'm not just going to knock your prices completely down. There's got to be money on both sides of the fence.
Right,
Otherwise, we're both going to be out of business, right? So, but yeah, that chain, when I got into it, it was at 4 stores, very bare bones, no POS systems. There wasn't even an average ticket per sale model. Didn't even know what that was. No clock in, clock out system. I mean, it was pretty bare bones.
Yeah.
And but you know, the owner at the time had trusted my vision to expand the company, and that's what I did. And when I came in when I left, we're at 28.
Wow.
Yeah, so I pulled out of that company last year, September. The original founder resigned, and you know, just some ideologic clashing, so to speak, and it just wasn't a place that was properly serving me anymore. And ultimately, I truly believe that, and I believe this in life, if you're going through something, pressure, wherever it is, you know, it's not necessarily pleasant. We think of it as bad, right? You know, we just, oh, it's bad, it's bad. And sometimes that's God talking to you. You know, He's trying to move you.
Right.
And sometimes we're real bullheaded and we don't want to move, you know? And so He's got to make you a little more uncomfortable before you can actually say, all right, you know what, I'm going to do it. And, you know, investing over a decade, almost close to a decade into that company, and, you know, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a month, you know, infusion of cash. It's a very hard decision to make. But I looked at the now and I looked at the future. I'm always a vision guy. And so while I look at the vision, there was 2 visions. It was a vision of staying, or it was a vision of removing and starting over and creating and making new. And one vision seemed to be brighter, and that's the vision I took. So,
What would you say is your hardest or the most difficult part about making that decision?
wow, there was a multitude of things, you know. To get to any level of success, you know, let's just say in the monetary fashion, there's a lot of sacrifices that come with that, right? You know, time with family, loved ones, you know. I didn't even have children, you know, because at one point I told wifey, I was like, hey, you know, I want to, but I need to put this time and energy into making these stores, right? Because ultimately what I was trying to do was build a future, right? And so many sacrifices, you know, a lot of people don't realize. So it's like, 1, do the sacrifices go in vain? Do I let that go? 2, the monetary infusion of money that I have, capital that I had put in, that I wasn't going to be able to get back. Then it was like, you know, old fear likes to come up on the shoulders, right? It's like, well, what are you going to do? I don't know. It's just kind of safe, you know? And so leaving, you know, stable, reoccurring income that I had created, right? Nobody was just giving me a paycheck, and to leave that. And so that was pretty hard. It was, you know, the sacrifices, I'd have to start over. Were they in vain? 2, all the monetary money that I infused. Don't want to lose that. But ultimately, you know, I truly do believe it was just God was just trying to tell me, like, hey, you got to move, man. You got to move. And one day I was driving, and I've never told this story to anybody. One day I was driving, and you know, I'm driving my red interior Panamera, man. You know, I'm jamming, right? I'm doing some chill moods, and I'm at a stoplight. And at this time, I was making this decision in my head. I'm like, you know, what do I do? You know, see some angles coming in that weren't necessarily ethically proper, and I knew that I wasn't going to allow those things to go any further, right? So I was making these decisions in my head all the time. I was at the red light, and I just felt the presence of God say, let go, I got you, son. I don't know how. There's not I can say maybe one other time in my life I've ever said that I've heard him. And when he did, I just had tears come down, and I knew this is what I got to do. And that's what I did.
It's tough. I experienced something very similar. For those who know, I started Pro Subs in 2012. Yep. I mean, for those who know, I mean, that was my child, my everything.
Yep.
Building that brand, and I walked away from that business at the end of 2019. That's probably still one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
Can imagine.
And, it's outside of the monetary. It's outside of everything else. I mean, that was kind of my identity, right?
Man, identity.
Right?
I'm going to let you finish that point.
Because
I
that's
got some
what
things
people
on identity.
associate you with, right?
Yeah.
And it's not really fear of starting over or working, because, guys like us know we can do that, right?
Yeah.
But that was really hard for me. And eventually you just get pushed where you kind of, metaphorically speaking, you look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, is this what I want to do for the next 5-10 years of my life?
Yeah.
Is this serving me what I should be doing?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, then the answer you got to make, and you might not want that answer.
Yeah.
It's a tough answer, right? Because
Yeah.
obviously I was making good money, residual,
Yeah.
call it monthly salary and everything like that at the time. The brand was still a $30-40 million company at the time.
Ginormous.
We had sold to private equity a couple years prior to that, so it definitely was different, right?
Yeah.
In terms of strategy and how the company operated, but I just knew this wasn't what I wanted to do for the next 10 years of my life.
Yeah.
And kind of walked away. So definitely tough, unfortunately, but I say fortunately, I've had to do that a few other times since.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, there's certain things that are put in our path that, there's still some things that probably don't make sense to me, right? But, one day it will. On why those things, are put there, how you overcome that and move forward. But we have similar stories at some capacities, and we've spoken on those fronts about that stuff over time.
Yeah. 100%.
And I think that's what makes the difference between somebody who's going to be really successful and, I would say somebody who maybe maintains mediocrity in their life.
Yeah.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah, to each his own, right? Everybody's got a different level of fire inside, and that fire will burn and shine as bright as they desire it to, right? But I think one of the biggest things, and which I know played a part in my decision making in various areas of my life, and you as well, is the ability to truly be honest with yourself, right? And so if somebody's unhappy, and I say this, to viewers watching this, right? If somebody's unhappy in their current atmosphere, setting, work environment, relationships, whatever the case is.
And the stats, I think it's more than 50%. I think it's like 70% of people are unhappy with their work environment or something to that capacity, right?
100%, right? And
so it hits home with a lot of people.
So many different various ways, right? And the kicker is really honesty and then fear, right? So one, honesty, they have to be honest with themselves. So people typically, they might not vocalize it, but they understand inside whether they're happy in their relationship, their work, company, career, on and so forth, coworkers, whatever. And if they're not happy, they should technically be honest and say, well, I'm not happy here, so I'm going to do what I need to do to make this a happy situation and go somewhere else or do whatever I got to do, right? Skills pay the bills, go learn some skills, right?
Right.
Then the other side of the fence is, okay, let's just say they let their mind start going that direction. Then the second thing is fear comes in. Fear says,
right.
Oh, do you really want to do that? It's a little crazy out there right now. You just got that vehicle.
Right.
You got that rent coming up. And fear kills more dreams every day than any gun, knife out there.
Right.
And the cemetery is full of aspirations, dreams, and concepts that never came to life because of fear. So fear kills all that, right? And so, but the big thing that you mentioned is identity. And so this is what I would, suggest for anybody either new, to the entrepreneur, world, entering it, and maybe they're an intrapreneur, maybe they're working inside of a company, right? Is identity. And so one of the biggest things, and then one of the hardest challenges that I also had to do, and we know this because me and you guys, we're real loyal guys, right?
Right.
And so when we wear the colors, fucking we bleed the colors, right? And when I had to make a separation, there was a lot of chaos going on internally behind the scenes in the company, and I couldn't communicate with anybody because it was like private information
Right.
about all these. Technically, they were bad ethically. They were get out. People would have a different perspective, right? And so I had all this frustration, and I had to essentially rebuild. And so I had to ask myself, okay, hold on. Well, all I know is my own identity tied to another man's brand or another name. And it's like, well, who am I without that, right? Because
Right.
it's like, hey, I'm Santiago, company, right? hey, I'm Santiago, so-and-so, I do this for company, right? But if you take the company away, hey, I'm Santiago, and what do you do?
Right.
Who are you,
Right.
right? And so identity is so huge. And so I would highly encourage everybody to really invest in themselves and build their own identity, and never allow something to take over your identity. You have to always keep your own identity, because if not, if in time there's ever a separation, you'll have a gap and a hole internally with it. You're gonna have to figure out how to fill it. But really, it should be filled with your own confidence, your own belief, your own skills. And so when that attachment to your name is not there, it doesn't affect you, because you still are who you are. You're very confident in yourself.
Right. And I think everything that you guys are saying from listening is something that I'm very big and passionate about, which is being self-aware.
Yeah.
I think that all these things that you guys are mentioning and you're understanding, like, in order for you to even get to that point or understand those feelings, you have to be so self-aware of how you're feeling. A lot of people, we talk about being happiness or not, and a lot of times we don't even realize that we're not happy. A lot of times we don't realize the amount of stress and the stuff that we carry on our shoulders until the moment that is removed. Yeah. I had this analogy one time with one of the mentors that I had. And she mentioned, as far as, like, imagine you go into the mall and they put a bag on you, and this bag is really heavy, weighing down on you. Yeah. Eventually, as you walk through the mall, you get used to the weight of that bag. And it isn't until somebody comes and removes it off your shoulder that you realize the pressure you had on. Yeah. And that's really how we take on life. That's really, even in some of the previous stuff that we've done in the past, I personally got to feel that right before we started this. I got to feel, I didn't even know the amount of stress that I had encompassed and that I had poured on top of me, just knowing and willingly, because we have that workers mentality. Yeah. We can do this. We can make this happen. We will make it happen. And you don't realize everything you've amounted on top. And then that's where you start to, you don't even realize you're not happy. Yeah. Right? Because it's normal. Like, you're just walking through that mall with this weight that you're bearing. Yeah. So I think all of that is so important, and it's so important, I think, as a business entrepreneur, employee, person, even somebody in a relationship, friendship, just being so self-aware of your emotions, your feelings, and everything. It starts there. Yeah. Because once you're able to pinpoint where these things are coming from, then you're able to pivot and make the moves accordingly. For example, when you were at ProSubs, and you lost that, you felt the loss of your identity. And unless you're fully aware of that, you won't make the move to change that. Right. Unless you're fully aware that, hey, I no longer feel this exact way. Yeah. And that's really, I think it's a big pivotal important point.
I didn't follow up with it, which I probably should. Is it, okay, well, the identity thing it's a thing, right? And so it's like, well, how do you fix that problem if that is a problem, right? Or how do you prevent the problem? And so I went through something called the MDK. It's called the Modern Day Night Project. And it's 72 hours of men's development in a lot of different ways, right? And so it's 3 days long. It's a crap ton of physicality, a little bit of sleep deprivation, a little bit of some, I don't want to call it food deprivation, but you're definitely not fed the most. And you sleep very little, and it's 72 hours of just getting fucked up, but there's a lot of teaching lessons and mentorships throughout this process. And so, I'll probably go off on a little tangent, right? But as men, we process things differently. We're talking about this off camera a little bit, right? We process things differently. And, naturally, I've seen this a lot of it, at least in the Latino community, is we got this machismo thing, you know what I mean? Like, stuff comes our way, it's like, you man up, right? Hey, just take it on the chin, man up, keep walking. We don't got time to get in the feelings. We got work to do, we got things to do, right? And well, that we don't process those things. And so when we're processing, man, I'm struggling here, identity, I'm lost, I'm scared, I'm fear, all these emotions, but sometimes we're just like, what, we bury it down and we just keep moving forward, right? We got to process that stuff. And so when I did the MDK, the Modern Day Night Project, it's led by a guy named Bedros Koulian, is one of my mentors and really great friend now. And but one of the big things about there is it really helped me re-identify and get clarity on my personal values. And so I believe that every man and woman should have personal values that they govern their life by. And so if you have personal values that govern your life, what you can do is then you can bring any situation to the table, or even if somebody brings a situation to your table, you can grade that thing, whatever it is, based off your values. And so it's like, all right, it doesn't affect my family, doesn't affect my finances, that affects this, that's not in alignment with my values.
Right.
I'm sorry, I can't do this. Why not? It's you know, that it's in confliction with my values, and it might not be a problem right now, but it's going to be a problem later. But you can organize and compartmentalize things based off of your values.
That's
and you can,
incredible.
So you kind of superficial. So the more in-depth question to your question was like, how did you know like when you need to make that decision? Well, one, God will speak to him. I'm a faith guy. Faith is one of my values. But the other side of the fence is a lot of the ethical things that were being done violated my values. And so I said, okay, well, there's one thing to being flexible and being a team player, but when my values are being violated, I can no longer stand for it, right? And so that was my real big brag, where I knew a decision needed to be made, and I was processing, and God, you know, I heard him speak to me. That was like the release to like, okay, I got to do it. But get your values in order. Get your values in order. If you have a significant other, make those values together. Maybe you have some relationship values, and then you have your own individual values. But govern your life by that, and you'll realize that there's a lot of things that really fall to the wayside. They don't get you clogged up because you're filtering everything based off of your values. And if your values are your core of who you are and who you want to be, it just makes the walk a little bit easier.
Yeah.
It's not hard. It's not easy, but a little bit easier.
Do you feel that there's a certain point in your life when, depending how early you decide or how much you understand what those values are or who it is to that core person that you are, like, do you think that there's a specific time and age that comes with maturity where you start to understand and know these values a bit better than you did before?
100%. Two, I think in time, I don't want to say values would change, but you might have things that, you know, we get older, right? And let's say, you know, somebody doesn't have kids. One day they have kids. That changes a couple of things, right? And that's just adding on to the values of now, hey, I need to be the ideal man that I want my daughter to marry one day, right? And so hold on, who do I want her to marry? Well, I want him to be smart. I want him to be educated. I want him to be physically fit. I want him to be a respectful man. Hold on, am I smart? Am I fit? Am I so, you know, okay, you know, and so as we go through life, we'll make some modifications to the values, but you know, respect, faith, family, some of these things, and sometimes, you know, in the past, I know I've done things that violated my values, but I didn't have those values. If I would have had those and been more stern about them, I probably could have alleviated some pain. But with every scar brings scar tissue, and it makes you stronger.
Right.
True.
Right.
So,
What would you say are some of your values?
What's that?
What would you say are some of your values?
Loyalty.
I was going to say
You
that.
know, you won't find anybody more loyal than me, I don't think. I'm big on trust, obviously, transparency. And I think, you know, reciprocation in terms of what I give and how it's given back is important. Energy, you know, in terms of that. But really, I mean, loyalty is probably my key. It's my core. I mean, everything I do in my life is about loyalty and obviously respect and things of that nature, right? But it goes back to relationships, right?
Yeah.
Any business, it doesn't matter if it's selling supplements or selling T-shirts. You know, any salesperson, it goes down to relationships.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, there's sales tactics and things that you can learn and pick up on through time, but people want to buy things from people they like, first and foremost. People that they trust, people that they respect. I mean, it's pretty simple, right?
Yep.
I've seen tons, and a lot of them have worked for me, you know. I mean, let's call out Eddie, right? Crazy Eddie. You guys know Crazy Eddie, a little thing going on there, right? You know, I post all the lizard pics, and, you know, everybody likes it on Instagram. But I love Eddie. He's one of my favorite human beings in the world, right? But Eddie, still to this day, can't tell you the difference between creatine, beta-alanine, and caffeine, you know? But that guy was an animal at selling because, you know what? People loved him. Yeah. They love him, right? And they want to buy. They feel his energy, right? He, you know, the guy's, you know, got a lot of energy, right? So, you know, that's important to me at the end of the day. But I guess loyalty is so important to me that when I get burned by somebody who I thought was loyal, it hurts so much more,
Yeah.
right? Because I am such a loyal person.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm learning in my life. So I think everybody's circle, I guess, gets smaller over time, unfortunately. I don't know, maybe fortunately too, right?
For sure.
You know,
Yeah.
people do change. People do get older. People, you know, values change, I guess you could say, one
Yeah.
way or the other, right?
Sometimes priorities
Yeah,
change.
priorities
I had
change.
I had a great friend, which is actually Italo.
Who?
Italo.
Italo.
Yeah. Well, it's a good friend. He had this great analogy. We don't connect often, but he had this great analogy on. He said that people, you know how they say people and things in your life, they're seasons, right?
Yes.
But so are people. And the way he described this analogy, which was so beautifully painted, says that we in this life we're on this train, right? And the train has multiple stops.
Yeah.
And within these stops, people come in and they join you on this train, and you board on this journey together. You're going to the same destination. But across this journey, there's different stops, and those stops are the different things that happen within our lives. Some of us get off, and we keep going forward with the other group that stayed behind.
Yeah.
And sometimes later in life, you find yourself back in the next stop. That other person comes back into your journey. You find in different times.
Yeah.
And I think it's just such a beautiful analogy of the concept of it all.
Yeah.
We're all going through our own things, and I think we're all growing. And within growth of that, friendships and families and people like that, there's also the relationships that we go in.
Yeah.
I feel like every person that comes into your life is meant to be there for a purpose and to serve its time and the moment that they no longer, or the lesson has been learned, or the lesson has been taught, then God removes the situation, and he removes them out of your life for a specific reason. I think the key and identity to all these things, after understanding that, is understanding what was it that I was supposed to learn from that lesson.
Yes.
What did I truly learn, so that you can move forward and you can know the direction within that train that you're going forward. So I think that it's a, what is it that led you to build these values? Like, when did you realize that these values you needed to?
I think, you know, I'd say, you know, some of them innately were always in me, right? Like, you know,
The core.
You know, Mexican mom, you know, she always said, you know, listen, when you go out, you make sure you look right. You know, when we go to church, you know, we don't wear ball caps. You know, at church, I always had a polo. I always had my shirt tucked in, like always looked right for church, right? And there was no exceptions to this rule, right? And so is presentability, right? And maybe this is a blue collar thing, right? You know, it's like, you know, hey, like we didn't have a whole lot of money, but we look right, right?
Right.
You know, we carry ourselves with a certain, you know, be proud, right? And
Right.
make sure we look right, you know? And so maybe that's where it started coming in from there. And then I was always, you know, around church, always in and out of churches. You know, my dad would move us around sometimes, but church was a staple. And so by that nature, faith became a staple, right? And so, you know, work ethic. You know, my mom used to tell me, you know, son, I don't know what you're going to do one day, but whatever you do, you're going to have to make a lot of money. You like nice stuff. I said, it's all right. I'll work hard, right? You know, so... you know, when I went through for school, when I switched to that nuclear medicine, I added an extra year to my degree. So it took me 5 years instead of 4. But every semester in college, I had a full-time job, or at least part-time, depending on my load of scheduled classes. I always worked, no matter what. And I was always working retail. Because, you know, people want to do business with people that they know, people they like, and people they trust, right?
Yep.
So I started developing those things pretty early on. But I think when I was just younger, man, my mother instilled a lot of these certain values. And as I got older, you know, like you said earlier, as time progresses, we learn a
You
little
start
bit more.
honing in on them. You start
Start seeing what's really important. And, you know, sometimes you don't know what's important until you get stung.
Yeah.
And then it's like, ooh, don't want that again.
Right.
So what do I need to do to not let that happen again, right? And so to your point, 100% life is seasons. Ups and downs. If you're winning, there'll be a losing eventually. If you're losing, the winning's coming, right? But life comes, and I truly believe. What was your friend's name?
Italo.
Italo. Italo's got a good analogy there of life.
Yeah.
Everything is in seasons, and people come in and out, and not necessarily people come in. They're not necessarily a positive, but then you know what not to surround yourself with in the future, right?
And at the end of the day, that does make it a positive because it teaches you
100%
what you should accept and what you shouldn't.
yeah.
So I take everything with grace. I take everything as a blessing.
It's his plan, I think.
That's
you know what I mean? When I think when I'm in difficult places or in the past, and I'm thankful now that, you know, I've been able to grow a lot internally. But I practice now, if I'm in a situation where I'm frustrated with something, I just ask, okay, all right, God, what are you trying to teach me here? So let me learn the lesson so I can get on, right? So learn the lesson, man. And everything, there's a lesson to be learned. If you look at as a negative situation, as you're actually supposed to learn a lesson in that negative, it actually brings a little light to the situation. And so you're like, it's bad, but man, I'm actually learning the A, B, C, D. And then next time you come in, your self-awareness will kick in and you know, I've been here before, I'm out.
Yeah. And I think all these experiences, I think we are, in general, we're a compilation of all these events that we go through in life. And that's what kind of shapes us and routes us. And we're able to see with better clarity, like the road ahead and how to move. Speaking of moving and the road ahead, where do you think that passion and that drive for you, like where did you think it started from?
Well, I've always liked to help people. I've always been I love to serve, right? You know, I like doing something and then seeing somebody happy, like their smile on the other end, right? So it lets me know it's a little like deposit internally where it's like, all right, like cool, like they're happy, right? So if I did something positive. The other side of the fence is I've just always been kind of a little hustler, I guess, right? So like even in middle school, we used to have these little tables where I forgot what like little organization it was, right? But they would sell like lollipops and chips and stuff, right? And so you'd go up and Cash App back then. We did literally cash, right? And so after school or middle of the day, you go up and give them $1 for the lollipop or get some Cheetos.
So you were the one selling the Mr. Hyde samples back in the day when we gave them the retailers.
There's a couple things.
You're the one that messed it up for everybody.
Yeah. So I was like, I started seeing this and I was like, well, I could do that, right? And so I had my mom take me down to a place called Sam's Club it's like a Costco, and I got all these lollipops for a bulk discount, right? So then I went to school. I said, put in my backpack, and I said, tell everybody, hey, by the way, I know everybody buys lollipops. I'm selling lollipops for $1 a pop. I got the pops in my backpack, and I would do this. And people, hey man, let me get 2 lollipops. Not a problem, man. $2. Boom, boom, boom. And I would have wad of cash. And then I started getting Then I started rolling dice. I was just like, man, I'm gonna make some more money, right? After school, finally the principal caught me. It wasn't a good deal, right? So then I was like, I stopped doing that. But my kicker is that I've always loved like selling and exchanging and
it's the
transactions and hustling, man. I just little mini, entrepreneur, right? I said I want to make some money. So you mix a little bit of some natural desire for sales. You mix a little bit of natural desire to serve and make people happy.
Some Delta 8 lollipops.
And then you
school.
mix a little, right? I can't do no Delta, man. That's not my style. But and then you just mix a little nerd, with it to study and wants to learn stuff.
Of course, that takes the next level.
I think that's kind of navigated to me where I'm at because I still love to serve.
So where are you at? People want to know what Santiago Campos is doing now.
Man, I ain't gonna lie, man. I got a lot going on right now. I got a lot going on. So, I'd say, one perspective is, I do coaching for men, selectively, right? And it's more like life coaching. And they say you're best to serve somebody that you used to be, right? So, if you've overcome something, let's say somebody out there was a recovering alcoholic. Well, they're probably best able to serve somebody that's currently an alcoholic, right? Because they know how to go through it. They've been through it and they've overcome it. So, that's kind of something that I do, and I kind of help men when they're kind of going through a lot of different, things in life and it feels heavy, how to navigate them out. A lot of guys, you ask them, hey man, what are your top 5 values you govern your life by? Not everybody's able to fire those off very quickly, which lets you know they haven't thought about it. It lets you know they're not guiding their life based off that. And so if life's a little chaotic, maybe that's why. Let's start there, right? And so I do a lot of work with guys, a little bit more of some deeper work. And then 2, I started a supplement line with my buddy Joey Stacks.
Nice.
And, so that's something pretty cool. And we kind of have like-minded on what we kind of want to bring to the market and as far as quality on and so forth. And so that's a new endeavor that we started this year. And then also as well, you know, kind of like you, man, you know, we've had a lot of time in the game, so to speak, and in formulations and relationships and manufacturers and ingredient suppliers and
Networking.
you know, networking and me with expos. And it's
Yeah.
like, what do I do with all this? And I fought it for a while. Then I started realizing, I was like, I have a very unique set of skills that not a lot of people know how to do. And I said, well, let me go solve problems for people that have problems with these situations, meaning they like to create a brand, but they have no clue how to do it. Maybe they got money, they have an existing business, but they don't know how to cross-pollinate that business and monetize it with supplements or fitness, right? You know, maybe they're already an existing brand and they really would like to optimize their company, optimize aesthetics, optimize, you know, cost of goods, turnaround times, manufacturing, just on and so forth, distribution, right? And so these all kind of came by really God. I didn't, you know, this thing started coming at me and I was like, nah, not right now. And then it would come at me again. Nah, not right now. So I started saying, hey man, I can't be pushing God's blessings away. I need to listen to what he's got to say. So yeah, I've started doing that, entertaining that now. So optimizing brands
Nice.
that are already existing to startup brands, people that maybe they have, you know, 1 million followers, but they don't know how to make money on those 1 million followers, right? And they're in the fitness health space, but they don't actually have a product to, you know, serve their clients or serve their people. Well, let's create something. And then also as well, a little bit of coaching and, you know, supplementation, but in the fitness industry, supplement industry.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, it's something our industry has needed for a while. It's obviously why, you know, we started House of Greatness.
Yep.
It doesn't matter who it is, as long as it's someone that has experience, been there, done that, and generally wants to serve the purpose of helping the client at the end of the day. I think there's plenty of room for everybody to do this, right? So as that kind of goes, so I think being in the industry, I think there's plenty of room for guys like you, guys like us at House of Greatness to offer that to clients. To optimize, there's so many things you need to optimize in running a supplement brand or business, right? Almost any other industry you go into, there is some type of company or companies that you can go to that have done it before, that have a resume of, I mean, if we were to add up the years of experience this group right here has in the supplement, from retail formulation, building a brand, selling a brand, like we've done it all.
Yep.
Like, I don't know, what, 40 years of experience.
Easy.
I would say, I know for sure millions of dollars we've lost.
And
you
made.
know,
And made.
we've lost,
And
and we've made a little bit of money, or at least the companies have, maybe not us personally.
Yeah.
But
Not yet.
you know, so that's priceless. That you know, in terms of what you can offer somebody. On so many different facets of their business, whether it is label design, logo, marketing, Shopify websites, Amazon, how to sell on Amazon, what's your cost of goods, how to make cost of goods, how to formulate, what's a good manufacturer, what's a bad manufacturer, how do you get better lead times, how do you generate and turn inventory quicker to make more cash, what's a good social media marketing program. I mean, it's endless, right?
Yeah, distribution, wholesale. I mean,
distribution, wholesale, retail. Should I go into retail? Should I not go into retail? Should I stay as an Amazon, you know, an Amazon business? Should I go on Shopify? Should I bring on an influencer? What about this TikTok thing? Should I get on TikTok, right? And there's no cookie cutter A plus B equals C, right? It's different for everybody in terms of where they want to go. So having companies or guys that understand this, I mean, there's a cost associated to that, because, you know, a lot of people look at it and say it's going to cost me X for this, but they have no idea how much money we potentially could be saving them, you know, with those hurdles or mistakes that could be made. I mean, I've made the mistakes. You probably have made those mistakes, right? We've made those. We've learned from those in our experiences, and the value that we offer to customers is not make that same mistake again, or we found a better, quicker, more cost-efficient way to do that. Right?
I think one of the biggest things that a lot of companies, you know, if they're already existing or they're thinking about starting is you know, look at a couple of things. One, most companies don't know what they don't know, right? And so that's already a big thing. And so you have to understand, you're going into, you know, I don't even know where we're at, 20, 30 billion, $50 billion, you know, market industry, 100 billion, you know, the supplement industry, and there's all these different categories within the, vitamin or anything dietary supplement space. Do you think you're going to enter a multi-billion-dollar industry, and there's not going to be a multitude of facets that you might need to know to be able to be successful in the crowd and amongst every other Joe Blow that's trying to start a supplement line or whatever it is, right? So they don't know what they don't know. But the other side of the fence is, all the different nuances, 100%. You could go and start your brand and learn from the ground up, and you can waste a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of headache, and make a lot of sacrifices. But the whole point on hiring a consultant, hiring a coach, a group of individuals or a company to, help out is what you're really paying is you're paying to time collapse all of those losses in time on and so forth that you could and would have experienced on your own if you wanted to. You time collapse all that, but not only are you time collapsing to get to quality faster, but you're also getting put in contacts with other high quality vendors. Somebody that knows how to properly design a label. Okay, well, label, I just want it to look good. That's great, but do you want to put it on Amazon? So there's going to probably be some label compliance you might need to be competent in. I didn't, what's that? Oh, well, I put the time and effort to know what I need to be doing there. Hey, formulations. Oh, well, I'm using 2-amino-isoheptane, but I want to go on e-com with Amazon FBA Fulfillment Center. Great, yeah, but that's not going to pass, so there's all these different things. And so I always say, I've spent, easily probably about 150 grand in personal development and other coaches and mentors. Why is that? Well, I'm trying to time collapse. I'm trying to learn faster. I'm trying to learn quicker, trying to make money quicker and faster. And what do? I pay somebody else to help give me all of the insight, the assets, the information, the network, the knowledge. And not only that, I'm also paying to not have to go through all of these troubles and turmoil, right?
100%.
Like, what's it worth to you?
Exactly.
By all means, but
and just like any
the
industry,
value's
man,
huge,
there's a
man.
bunch of call what it is scam artists, people that self-proclaim know-it-alls and they can do this and do that. And there is a lot of negative in the industry, or people that take advantage of those people who don't know, right?
Yeah,
Which is unfortunate. So, I think consumers are a lot more savvy today, especially from a research perspective. So, if you're one of those consumers that is buying something and you spend time to look at reviews online, this and that, why are you not doing the same in terms of the people you hire to help you with your supplement brand, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why are you not doing it? Oh, a friend referred to you or found somebody on Fiverr or something like that, versus going to experienced individuals who've been there, done that, who genuinely want to help you.
Yeah.
If I was going to go in the nail industry, the nail salon industry, which my network is zero, right? I don't have a network. The amount of years and time, talk about time collapsing, the amount of years in trade shows and stuff that I have to do to meet vendors, establish relationships, find the best suppliers, packaging people. I mean, you're talking decades to do that.
Yep.
That is something that, guys like us offer.
And there's a
lot of value to that.
And that's essentially why I see House of Greatness as such an important role and place in this marketplace, right? Because you're exactly paying for that. You're paying for the very best in the industry to have that knowledge, or has had that knowledge through all these years, and is able to pass that knowledge down to you so you don't make the same mistake.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal of everything that comes out from this house, from this building, is we're able to assist you and propel you forward in a much quicker pace than you would if you had to figure this out on your own.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like, why would you go through that struggle? Why would you try to figure it out when you can have somebody teach you and show you the ropes?
And by all means they can, and we can look at the statistics. How many brands are created every year in supplements, and then how many brands go out of business? And it's not even just the new, even existing companies go down, right? What is it? And they're in debt, they got to claim bank, whatever the case is, right? The whole kicker is, man, is it like, just look at the statistics.
Right.
Yeah.
You might want to pay to get ahead and really learn and get the network, get the hand. But I think at the end of the day is to be serviced by people that genuinely want to help you. Like, I know all three of us on this couch, we genuinely love the idea of making somebody's dream a reality, and then seeing them like, oh my God, this is my brand, my product. It's like, that's all
Our tagline here is where dreams take flight.
Where dreams take flight.
I didn't know.
You talk about, that smile on someone's face after you've done something for them, and I mean, I love helping people. Everybody knows that. And over the years, I've always been that guy where, Ike, do you know a manufacturer that can make me a pre-workout? Yeah, hit up my buddy Ryan.
Yeah.
Ike, do you know a label company? Hit up this,
Yep.
right? And just out of the nature of my heart, like, here, go do what you got to do, right?
Yep.
Then you realize that, hey, like, that's a network that we've established and built. We trust. Like, I would never put my name on something where I send it to a manufacturer that I know isn't going to do it right at the end of the day. And there's the value in that, right? Because since we've started House of Greatness, we've had at least 4 clients who've come to us and basically say, man, I wish I met you guys when I started my brand.
For sure.
Because my first manufacturer robbed me for this. Or my label company did this. Or my label, the first run of labels weren't compliant and I had to start over, right? So every industry has that. And again, that's where I think, and there's plenty of room for a lot of people to do what we do, right? At the end of the day, because there's no shortage of brands. I'm not going to say there's a massive, extensive list of experts that have been there and done that with a combined experience that you might see sitting here on this right now, because that's, that just takes years. I mean, I've been doing it since 2007, Joseph since 2012, and you probably since 2010. 12, right? So, I mean, that's just time. You can't buy that. You can't pay it forward. And in growing my brands, I've learned everything from bad manufacturing, good manufacturing, formulation, batch records, SOPs, regulatory claims, getting sued because of claims you put on products. Like, you name it. Like, it's pretty much happened at some point in time. So, that's something that we want to negate with clients that we work with and help them expedite the process of bringing their dream, to take flight at the end of the day, minimizing as much of that as we possibly can. And you're talking about a space that's more saturated than ever, right? You think about it. Crazy. I think everybody probably watching this video knows somebody that has started a supplement brand, right? That didn't happen 10 years ago.
You might know somebody who started a supplement brand that doesn't have a brand anymore, which gives credence to.
Say it again?
They might also know somebody that started a brand that went down and is no longer.
Probably know that as well, right?
Exactly.
So, and this is a business where I'm a science guy like you, right? I've always been crazy about my formulations and stuff. But for the most part, the consumer doesn't really care, right? And it's going to boil down to the marketing, the culture. You talk about core values as a person. We talk about core values of a brand, right? That makes people want to support that brand at the end of the day. That's ultimately how you're going to build a brand versus selling a pre-workout powder, right? Yeah, you might be able to sell a couple thousand bottles of pre-workout powder a year. I don't know if you classify that as a brand, right? But there's a lot of moving parts in this today. And I think a lot of people, like you said, they don't know what they don't know. So they won't realize what they need until you show it to them.
Or until they have a hole that they're bleeding. There's a crack of money.
Well, that's something you could plug, right?
There's
There's tangibility there, right? A lot of times in marketing, not everything is tangible. So you can't show what you spend or do here has led to this. Back 10 years ago, before social media existed, brands like us, ProSups, BPI, Muscle Tech, we used to spend $5,000 to $10,000 per magazine page to run ads in bodybuilding magazines.
That's where it's at.
Right? Muscular development, flex.
It feels so long ago.
Right?
Yeah, right.
I feel like
think about it, that's per page.
That's how I learned to work out.
So if you had 10, 12, 15 pages, there was brands spending hundreds of $1,000s per month to put an ad, in a physical magazine that you have to buy and you actually have to flip through, right? No call to action there.
That's old school.
So think about what we used to spend as brands in those magazine ads. How did we have any idea how many people actually saw that ad and then from that ad went in their car, found a store that sold that specific product that they saw in the ad and bought the product because of the ad? Impossible. Like literally impossible to track that spend, right? But it's still in a sense, there's algorithms and there's opens and click rates and viewerships and things like that. And there's call to actions, right? So there's things you could do with codes and things like that, but it's still not one for one, right? You can't say, X amount of dollars that you're spending on an Instagram post, a Facebook ad, a TikTok ad, an influencer, or photography you put on your website, you can't monetize that dollar for dollar in terms of what that brings you all the time, right? Because there's always there's awareness plays, right, where you just want to grow awareness campaigns,
And
right? So there's so many variables in this equation that leads to brand building. And I don't know, you know, maybe people are different than me, but I've had my own brand. Everything I've always done, like I want the best formula, the best bottle, the best lid, the best label, the best photography, the best renders. Like if you're starting a brand and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna spend money getting it made, but I'll just get a cheap bottle. I'm gonna get a lid that goes on crooked. You know, if it has a seal, great. If it doesn't, what? Who wants to start a brand that way?
Well, I think it all goes back to the ethics of who we are and those values that we consider. And I think that's key is presentation. You know, those are the things that you're investing on. That's the presentation that you're making as soon as you're coming out forward. So
And you know, I play devil's advocate here, right? But like, we need those people out there, though. You know, other brands. You need the people out there that aren't going to put the time, that aren't putting the work, aren't going to do the research, aren't going to pay to get some quality made, because that's just all that fluff. And the people that do take the time to put in the work on, etc. Well, they're going to be a cut above the rest, but you can't really be a cut above the rest.
I feel like some of those guys and girls also give our industry the black eye.
Every
you
industry, every industry's got it. Yeah.
And I've always been a proponent. We had Ben from Price Plow on here last week. Always been a big proponent for regulatory and things like that, standardizing the industry, because there are a lot of manufacturers that are not GMP.
Yeah.
You know, that don't follow standard. You know, think about the food industry. Like I always use this analogy because it's so black and white to me.
Yeah.
You go to the grocery store, you buy chicken, right? Does anybody doubt when they cook that chicken in their oven, on their grill, in their frying pan? Maybe your air fryer, right? It's all cool now, right? Air fryers. Does anybody doubt if it's steak or beef?
No.
No, it's chicken, right? Because it says chicken on there, right? Unfortunately, in our industry, you could go to a store, buy something, and what's on that label might not actually be in that product.
Yeah. That's
Like, imagine if that was the food industry.
they just approved fake chicken.
You know? Well, maybe it's still by DNA, it's chicken. But, like, I'm not buying chicken and you test it and it comes back as elk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Imagine if the food industry was that way.
Yeah. It's no bueno, man.
It would be crazy, man.
Yeah. You know, and just like any industry, right? I mean, food industry, I mean, you got people that make quality chicken and whatnot, right? So I think at the end of the day, you know, the cream rises to the top, right? And so, you know, I think there's people out there that want to start a brand, they want to do so forth. You know, just like when I did the nutrition stores, right? I had somebody made a proposition to wanted me to partner for a very large amount of nutrition store chains. And I was like, you know, I don't know if I want to quite do that yet. I'm working on some other projects. But you know, I know how to do that, right? And so, well, how do I know how to do that? Well, the majority of nutrition stores say, this is a market. People want to buy stuff. I'll open a door, put stuff on the walls, and people buy it, and I make money, right? A little disingenuous on my perspective, right? But it's a business model, and they do, and it's not necessarily done with heart, right?
Yeah.
But it is what it is, right? And those are the people that do that, give nutrition stores kind of a bad name, and they go out of business, versus being able to create a proper, let's say for instance, nutrition store, but it being done customer centric, being done with cost proper, you know, products, consultations, product education, you know, making the customer feel special, whatever the case is, right? But having different things where now you're actually creating an experience, right? And I used to tell all my guys when I would train them, we don't sell supplements, we sell an experience, right? To get that off the product and it's customer centric. And so there's just gonna be people that are just gonna entertain things and they go and they fizzle out, and then you're gonna have people that do quality. And I think quality will always leave clues and leaves a cookie crumb. And if you're working with somebody of quality, they'll have a quality trail of things that they've done.
I think there's
that you've done.
At least 3 main points on that topic. Number one, the experience, right? I mean, for those who know me, I've sold to pretty much every mom and pop supplement store in America over the last 15 years. Retail is different. We call that ultra specialty retail, right? That business is different. And like you said, the majority of them open a store, throw some products on the shelf,
Yeah.
sits back on Instagram liking Joseph's bodybuilding pics, and then wait for people to come in. They literally take the bottle, they put it to register, they ring them up, and they're out.
Yeah.
No experience, right?
One and done.
And I've had a lot of conversations over the last 5 years with the shift of e-commerce, right? And you get those retailers that, oh man, Amazon put me out of business. Brands selling on their websites putting me out of business. Well, you know, there's an argument to be made that it's a competitor, right? It's definitely competing with you.
Yeah.
But you were creating an experience 10 years ago before online technically really existed. I mean, you always had bodybuild.com, which I guess you could say was a online competitor, right?
Yeah.
But it's because of what you instilled 10 years ago is why that specific retailer today is still doing well.
100%.
Now, if they continue to maintain those values about the experience, because it's more relevant than ever on how to do that, I still believe in the supplement space that we're in, we sell consumer packaged goods that people put in their mouth and they swallow.
Very important.
Like, this stuff goes in our body, right? And I think when things go in our body, a lot of questions arise from this. And people want to ask questions, as it should,
and it
right?
Should be, yeah.
When we get sick, we go to the doctor, right? We have thousands of questions, or we go to Google, right? But we have thousands of questions. So we're in an industry where I think retail will never die. I think it's going to segment into the ones that do it right. They're gonna prevail and be around.
Yeah.
Where the other ones, it's going to be a lot harder just to throw some products on a shelf and think you're going to be in existence, right? Because you offer no experience, no value to the consumer.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very important topic. So I think retail will remain, for those who do it right.
I think retail,
because there's always going to be people that have questions for these products.
Yes, that's one of the, first of all, e-com ain't nothing new. I mean,
no.
Google didn't come out yesterday, right? And so, with that being said, I used to have, my guys when I would train them, they'd be like, yeah, but online, how do we overcome that? I mean, listen here, man. I don't care about online, bro. Online can't do what I can do in 15 minutes with the customer inside of a store. They just can't.
That customer walks through that door. If you got them. Man, right? That's the hardest thing. Get them in the door.
Yeah, man. I would have people like when I would done, running them down top to bottom consultation on. So they're like, do I book you? Like, how do I get this service every month? I'm like, nah, you just come in. Like, I got you, right?
Yeah. Except for when Ike shows up, he makes me wait for 3 hours. It's all good though. It's all good. Playing the big dog card.
Yeah, man. My point with it is that I feel like there's always going to be a business for people, right? And so people love people. I think people, despite, I know what social media and all this different stuff does, but I think people do enjoy to a certain degree being social, and we need to be social. And people like asking questions, especially in an industry and a category, specifically supplements, where there's a big question mark. You ask people, I go up, ask 10 random people outside about, I don't know, beta-alanine, and they're going to all probably not know what the hell I'm talking about, right? Point is that the average consumer doesn't know much about supplements. So guess what? Where do they got to go to get their answers? Well, they can go online and go do a bunch of reading, or they can pop into the nutrition store, get greeted, get broken down, get the best product, best prices, maybe get an in-body consultation, get put on rewards or whatever the case is, and they don't got to pay for shipping. It's right out the door. Get it now. And so there's always going to be an industry for people that do things right? There's other people that do label designs, right? They might not do it as good as you, and they might not last. Why? Because they don't have the quality, right? There's other people that do manufacturing or doing formulations and on and so forth. And eventually they get weeded out because people realize that they're just fucking white labeling, right? Whatever the case is. So I just believe that as long as you got the hustle, you got the drive, you got the fire, and you got the stamina to keep going and learn and fight it and make sure you're making the proper moves on your chessboard, bringing the proper coaches or mentors or consultants to come in and solve these problems and expedite your success. I think people are going to win, but they got to have that. They got to want it, and there's going to be the people, the Joe Blows that don't do it right. But my opinion, I need the Joe Blows that don't do it right because that makes me look better.
And they can come hire us out.
There we go, man.
So what's the future of Santiago?
Man, I'm living life right now, man. I'm living life, and I always know I'm not really worried about the future. I just have a sense of peace that I know that great things are on the horizon. So my purpose is learn as much as I can during the season, continue to drop deposits of good faith and good value into the friends and people and network that I have around me, and be of value. A lot of people come in real quick with open hand, ready to say, what can I get? I would tell somebody watching this, don't go into relationships like that. Go into relationships of what you can give. What kind of value can I drop into your bucket? So that way, maybe you got some credit now, right? You know what I mean? And if not, you did it for the right reason because it fills your heart, right? And so I'm just in that journey of, networking, dropping deposits, being valuable where I can and add value. Building brands, learning more, and making some money, and just collaborating with new people, man. So I don't do the podcast thing too often.
You
It's
should.
probably like my second or third one ever,
should.
but I really enjoy them, and so I really appreciate you having me on, man.
We're really excited to have you
Thank you,
here. I think it's been, I say this every time, but it honestly just, each interview and each one of the new, I guess, it's one of Ike's friends. You come through Ike, and a lot of people have been being mentored under Ike for all these years, and it's really, every time we have these podcasts, they're so special because it creates this. I'm excited to learn about people who have been in the industry, but just people in general, how they think and what it is that drives them and the purpose, and obviously having the opportunity to work together and for us to collaborate makes me even more excited. So I'm very excited to have met you. I'm very excited to have this conversation we had, and I look forward to having a lot more of them. Thank you for coming to the House of Greatness.
Yeah, in closing, man, thank you for being here, brother.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for being a loyal friend all these years, first and foremost. I love what you're doing personally, man. That's heart to heart, bro. Love what you're doing. Continue to help people, lead by your heart, mentor, man, because we all need it at some point, right?
And ain't nobody perfect, man.
Ain't nobody perfect, man. And you're not no less of a man because of it, right?
No.
And hey, if anybody wants to create their own supplement brand, optimize their own supplement brand or vitamin brand, at the end of the day, hit up Santi, man. The guy's got tons of experience. You want to work with people that genuinely want to help, and I think you guys can see from this that's what we are here to do. So
100%.
really excited to see where your journey is. A year from now, we'll do another one of these and kind of see what's changed in terms of that. But
maybe we can do it a little before a year, man.
Well, yeah, me too.
I'm thinking like quarterly.
Like 2 months, 3 months.
I mean, when you get off the plane, man, you're like, man, Florida's a little humid, bro.
Oh, no, dog. Texas is like 104 right now, homie. I'm good.
No, we'll definitely have you back on, man. So, again, humbling to have you here, bro. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate
And
both of y'all having me on.
keep killing it, brother.
Welcoming me into the casa today. I greatly
Casa
appreciate
de Magna.
Casa de Magna, and it's a pleasure to be around you guys and collaborate. And I think see some good things are gonna come in the future, man. I'm
Good
excited.
things come.
So, much love, man.
Dreams take flight.
Thanks, guys.
I'm going for greatness.